What is up, guys? It is Dadbod here. Welcome back to part 2 of the Elden Ring walkthrough. So before we get started, a couple quick housekeeping things. You'll notice that our little golden pathway that's shining from our site of grace is pointing us in that direction. So you see here on our map, that's where it's kind of the game's telling us to go. This is the direction of Stormville Castle. If you remember, some of the NPCs earlier in the game kind of mentioned that place is the first main area of the game to go, which is kind of true. However, if you go there, you're not going to have a whole heck of a lot of fun because that area is, I believe, meant for a very much higher level. You're going to really struggle with that area if you're a lower level. So what we're going to do is we're going to enjoy some of what this area of the game has for us. We're going to do a lot of exploring, a lot of leveling up. We're going to be having a lot of fun before we head that direction, and we'll be much more prepared later on when we do head that direction, and it's not going to be nearly as punishing as it would be if you went there right now. Another thing I wanted to point out is you see there's some enemies roaming around right there. If we were to go ahead and engage those enemies, I just want to point out, for those of you who are not familiar with this game, there is really no true pause button. So even if you bring up your memory or your menu, or even if you bring up your map and that kind of stuff, it does not truly pause the game. The enemies will still be moving and you can still be attacked. You can still be killed if you're not careful. So I just wanted to point that out. And also, you may have noticed there's no way to like create a separate save file with your game. Basically, your file is what it is, and the game auto saves every few seconds. It feels like every time you kill an enemy, every time you loot a chest, something like that, the game is going to auto save. So don't worry about your save progress. The game is constantly saving and constantly updating. I just wanted to get that out of the way first. So what we're going to do is we're going to get straight into the action. This walkthrough is not designed to be like a get OP early type walkthrough. There's some walkthroughs out there that they spend like the first 3 or 4 hours of the game going around the entire map, getting a bunch of items become OP. We are going to get those items eventually. Do not mistake me. We are going to get those items eventually, but we're just not going to go and get them at the beginning of the game to become super duper powerful right from the get-go. We're going to approach this game more the way that the game is intended to be approached, and we are going to, I think, maintain that sense of awe and discovery that that is intended for players who are exploring this game for the first time. So that being said, there are a couple guys that I recommended last episode, one from Boomstick Gaming, one from Vati Vidya. I'm going to link those again in this video as well for those of you who might want to become OP early and then, you know, follow this guide to figure out where all the other good stuff is. So there's no wrong in doing that if you want to. That's just not what this guide is designed for specifically. And I do want to point out for Vati's guide, because his is way more in-depth, he's going to take you way far north on the map to a place called the Altus Plateau. I would be wary of going there because I think if you go to that area of the map, I think that it might screw up with some of the quest lines. So be careful with that. I would not recommend going that far north. You'll know what I'm talking about if you watch this video and you want to get OP early, all that good stuff. So that's it for housekeeping. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out of the way first. As I said, we're going to dive straight into the action. We are going to engage in this area here and do some combat. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to rest at this site of grace. That'll reset the enemy patterns. And I'm going to show you how I approach this area. It's a lot of fun, and this will get you familiar with the combat basics. Right off the bat, you're going to want to crouch, and you can get a free backstab on this guy. It's basically a one-hit kill. When you're crouched, you can actually still hold the sprint button, and when you're crouched and sprinting, it's basically like your normal walk speed. So you're going to do the same thing with this guy. You notice he has a horn. If he sees you and blows his horn, he's going to alert the entire camp to your presence. You're going to want to take him out before he blows that horn. See, this guy is kind of chilling over here. We're going to save that other guy you see at the top of the screen for later. He's much stronger. We're not going to want to engage him right now. We're going to get him later. You see, I mentioned in the last episode, I do like stealth in this game. We're getting a lot of backstabs, guys. And backstabs are really nice in this game if you get them in stealth. You can either one-hit kill, in this case, many enemies. Also, if you don't one-hit kill them, you're still going to do a heck of a lot of damage. We're going to clear out this area. All of the enemies, we're going to clear it out. And then we're going to go through and grab all the loot. So once you come around this corner, you're going to see some guys here patrolling with dogs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my trusty bow and arrow. You see I've locked onto that guy. I actually want to hit his dog next to him. My bow and arrow will kill the dogs in one hit, I believe. And so, oh, he just walked past. That's fine. There's one laying on the ground right there. It actually hit the soldier in his foot. But now that I can lock onto the dog, I'm going to kill the dog. and so that he's not going to be a problem when the soldier comes over. I'm going to do the block and counter attack method of killing most of these guys. So you see here, I blocked, and I took his hit with my shield, and immediately after I took that hit, I followed up with an R2, and that did my counter attack, and that got me a stun so I could do a critical in one hit. Now we see this guy's dogs coming over here. I'm going to shoot him with my, let's see. Yes, I got him. So you see one arrow will kill those dogs, and now I'm going to get this guy to come over, and I'm going to do the same thing with him. I'm going to block his attack and then counter attack. So do the R2 counter attack. You get the stun. Once an enemy's stunned, you just walk up to him, press R1, and you get that critical attack. And you again, just to reiterate, my shield that I have equipped does not do 100% physical damage reduction. So these guys' attacks are physical. They're not magic, fire, lightning, holy, etc. These guys' attacks are purely physical here at the beginning of the game, and I'm only negating 68% of that damage, but it's still enough. Later on, maybe next episode or the episode after that, we're going to get a shield that blocks 100%. So you see that guy kind of chilling. We're actually gonna swing back past him back over here. This guy is facing the other way. We're gonna get him with a backstab. And then you guessed it, we're going to get this guy with the backstab. Now, this guy who's patrolling, you're going to want to wait till he kind of goes by, because if you attack this guy when he's right in front of you, then he's going to aggro to you. And he is the strongest enemy in this camp by far. Now, you remember we got our wolf spirit ashes in the last episode, and I have them equipped here to my quick bar. And again, I access that quick pouch, I guess you could call it, by holding triangle. And if I press right, I'm going to summon them. So once I aggro this guy, I'm going to try to get a quick backstab in on him to start things off. And then once he aggroes to me, I'm going to summon my wolf ashes and go from there. This guy is really tough. If you try to fight him straight up, he will probably kill you. He is really tough. So I would take heed. You see, when he's recovering, I did a charged R2 when he gets up. Now his stab attacks with his spear are super powerful. So these spirit summons actually take a second to come in. So I just cornered myself. That was brilliant. So what I'm going to do is you want to make sure that you have a little bit of distance before you call them in, just to give yourself enough time so you don't get hit. So now these guys are going to start attacking him and distracting him. So once he's kind of on them, he's attacking them, his attention is diverted. So I can just sneak around here and get a backstab. and that's, I mean, it seems a little bit cheap, but really it's using the tools that this game gives you. These spirit wolves are really solid. As you go through the game, we're going to get tons of different types of spirit ashes that you can summon. Really, the wolves, I mean, they're not the best in the game, but they're pretty solid. They're a very good option even midway through the game. So we're going to be using the wolves probably primarily. We might switch things up a little bit as we go through. And you see there's a couple other guys over here. We don't really need our wolves anymore. I'm just going to let them, do their thing, because why not? I'm going to sneak around this guy. Well, he saw me. Never mind. I was going to try to be sneaky, but now my wolves are on him. And you see the wolves do damage. In addition to taking away their aggro, the wolves do damage. So now I can backstab this guy because he's paying attention to the wolves. And you'll notice on the right-hand side of the screen, where it says the lone wolves, you'll notice that each of these wolves has an HP bar. Once those HP bars are depleted, then the wolves are gone, and I won't be able to have them out anymore. But since we're all done here, you can use the same button that you used to summon them. And then if you do it again when they're out, you can send them away. We have no more need for them. Actually, well, there is one more guy here, but we can easily take him out using the same method we were doing before. This is the only guy who's left. I'm going to take his attack, do my counter attack, and critical hit. And so that's it for this camp. So what we're going to do now is we're basically we're just going to loot the place and get everything that there is here to get. And there's a lot of stuff here that's actually really important. Some of the enemies may have dropped loot. Kind of going back to the ground rules of this walkthrough, I'm not going to use anything primarily that requires RNG to get. So like if there's a really good weapon or a really good shield that requires RNG, I'm not going to be using that in this playthrough. You can certainly use it, but I'm going to choose not to because I don't want RNG to be a factor and people being able to try to copy what I'm doing in this walkthrough. So first things first, what we have here is extremely important. If you zoom in on the map, you'll see that we have this little icon. It's sort of like a little monument here. This indicates that this is a map fragment. And so that's right in front of us. So we're going to pick this up and get our first map fragment of the game. And what that's going to do is it's going to fill in our map here. So you can see the terrain, you can see the layout of this area. And it's really going to be helpful with exploring and seeing just kind of, okay, over here, there's like a plateau. Over here, you know, this is sort of, this is an elevated area. This is a beach area. This is a water area. It really helps you kind of get an idea of the lay of the land. And so as we go out through the world, we're going to be collecting these map fragments. It's going to fill in our world. And this is a big area. Like for starters, this is a pretty big area, but it is such a small percentage of the overall game. And it is astounding as you go through this game, the things that you're going to come across and stumble upon, and just how the map keeps expanding. It is nuts, and it's so amazing. I really enjoy it. So what we're gonna do now is we killed this guy. We're gonna loot this treasure chest. And in here, we get the Lordsworn Greatsword. It's a pretty solid strength weapon for starters. I actually used it for quite a bit in my first playthrough. I used it through the first main dungeon of the game, Stormvale Castle. We're not going to be using it in this build, but it is a pretty solid weapon if you're going for strength. We also can access this chest back here. And pick up this item. We get the Flail. So we can check out these items. So we got the Lordsworn Greatsword. You see that it requires 16 strength. We don't even have that yet. This requires 18 dex. This is more of a dex weapon. Pretty solid option too. I'm going to stick with the Uji-Katana, our starting weapon. The Uji-Katana is actually a really, really solid weapon in this game. This is going to be what's carrying. This is going to be what carries us through pretty much the beginning of the game. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down here in this tunnel, and we're going to get an item that is very important. We are going to get the Whetstone Knife. So with a Whetstone Knife, you can use Ashes of War to grant your armaments new skills at sites of grace. An armament can only have one skill. Any skill it previously had will be removed. An armament's type determines what skills it can have. Some special armaments have unique skills and cannot be granted new ones. And also with the Whetstone Knife, you can use Ashes of War to grant an affinity to your armament. This way you can alter an armament's attack affinity, boost attributes, scaling, and more. So I'm going to go over that at the next site of grace, because sites of grace are where you can equip your Ashes of War. So we got the Whetstone Knife, which allows you to equip Ashes of War, and then we got one of the Ashes of War out of that treasure chest. We're going to take a look at that in just a minute. I'm going to circle around here just to make sure that none of the enemies dropped anything that we might be interested in that we killed. And I think we're good, guys. So we're going to move on to our next site of grace here, which is right in front of us, right over here. And as I'm riding around, you see sometimes you get the prompt to pick up materials. As I'm riding around, oftentimes I just mash triangle just to pick up stuff that's on the ground as we go. It's not a bad idea. So we got our new site of grace here. So let's check out the Ashes of War that we just unlocked. So now we can equip Ashes of War here at a site of grace. With the Ashes of War menu, you can use Ashes of War to grant skills and affinities to your armaments at site of grace. An armament can only have one skill at a time. So let's check out. We got the Ashes of War Storm Stomp, which is actually a decent, kind of AoE type attack that you have at the beginning. So you can equip this. And if you remember, currently this weapon that we have, the Uji-Katana, innately has the Unsheathe ability. And so what that is you can, again, stick your weapon in the sheath, and then you do this kind of powerful attack. That's the default weapon art that this weapon has. But what the Ashes of War do is it allows you to override that and equip, these other abilities that you're going to pick up through the game. And there are tons and tons and tons of Ashes of War throughout the game that we're going to get. What it also allows you to do is it allows you to change the scaling. So you see here we go from standard to quality. So what quality scaling is it basically splits the scaling between strength and dex. We're eventually going to get other Whetstone knives that allow us to make our weapon a pure strength weapon, a pure dexterity weapon. If you're really just leveling up that strength or leveling up that dex, you can get magic ones, magic affinities. You can get blood affinities, poison affinities. We're going to get all that as we go through the game. The options open up substantially as you get deeper and deeper into the game. So you see when we equip this quality affinity, it actually enhances our scaling. But what it does is it enhances the scaling, but what it does is it decreases the base physical damage. So if you do the math, it may or may not be worth it. It tends to be more worth it the higher you level your attributes. So for example, for equality affinity, you're going to want to be leveling up your strength and dex. You can also do, later in the game, as I said, you can do a pure strength affinity, which, if you dump a ton of levels into strength, then it's going to actually, your scaling is going to be so beefed up by that point in time that, it might be worth it to take off a little bit of that base damage to get that extra scaling. Right now, the math doesn't really work out in the favor, so I'm just going to leave it as standard. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate what this does here. So instead of having the Unsheathe, now we have Storm Stomp. So if you press L2, see it does this AoE attack where, if you have a bunch of enemies around you, you do this, it's going to do damage to everybody who's in range of that attack. And it's actually not a bad attack to have. So I'll leave it on. I don't use these early game kind of Ashes of War as much. There's going to be a weapon that we get a little bit later on where I'm going to really, really be using it. Yeah, it'll be lots of good fun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head on down the road to our next kind of point of interest, if you will. So we hear this guy. He's an NPC we're going to interact with. And there's some goats over here. If you kill these goats, you're going to get a small number of runes. But some of these goats, some of these animals will also drop materials that you can use for crafting. So this one dropped thin beast bones, and those can be used for crafting. We actually see a guy over there who's on horseback. This Arteria leaf can be used for crafting as well. We're gonna ignore him for now. So I'm gonna kill this guy on horseback just to demonstrate how horseback combat works. So I'm using R1 to attack to my right side. You can use R2 to do a heavy attack. You can use circle to sprint away. You can use X to jump. And so it's good to practice your horseback combat because there are a few enemies that are a bit tougher later on in the game that we're going to fight primarily on horseback. So my primary way for fighting on horseback is I kind of just circle around and wait for openings. And once I get an opening, I rush in, and then I'll hit either R1 for a light attack or R2 for a heavy attack. Or if I'm on the other side, you can attack on the other side using L1 and L2. So really, whatever side that you'd want to attack from, that's the side that's the button you're going to hit. So if you want to attack on your right side, you're going to hit the right shoulder buttons. If you want to attack on your left side of the horse, you're going to hit the left shoulder buttons. And that's how, more or less how horse combat's going to work. So try it out for yourself, kind of get a feel for how your combat's going to work on your horse. And that's a good guy to try to learn that on. So what this is saying is that if you vanquish an enemy group, you can replenish your flask usages. So this encourages combat, and this encourages clearing out camps of enemies, because if you clear out the full camp of enemies, it is likely that you could get some healing flask usages back for engaging in combat. Okay, so this guy that's been bothering us, he has actually been transformed into a bush. So what you're going to want to do is this is him right in front of us. You're going to want to roll into this bush, and you'll reveal him. He's an NPC that we're going to interact with.
What'd you go and do that for? Oh, yes, I remember. Some clod turned me into a tree. You were just breaking the spell, weren't you? Thank you. The name's Boc. I was pushed out of the cave. Told not to come back. Not ever. Then I ended up as a tree. Lucky you came along, really. Oh, what a shame. When they threw me out of the cave, they took everything I owned. And so this is all I have to express my thanks. I hope you can forgive me. Or, well, if you can afford to wait for a while, I could sneak back into the cave and bring back something of actual value. Then I'd be of some real use to you, I reckon.
Okay, so I'm going to exhaust his dialogue. Generally good practice to always exhaust the dialogue of an NPC.
Frightened of them. My knees start knocking just thinking about that god-awful cave on the shore.
Okay, so that cave he's referencing, we're going to go there later.
But I'll need
Not today, but in a different episode.
I'm frightened.
Okay, so he keeps repeating himself. So we know we've exhausted his dialogue. I did another gesture there by mistake. You can actually turn that off. Motion sensor functions. I want this off because I'm tired of doing gestures by mistake. So let's see. There's some materials around here we can pick up. Just south of here, you see this marking on the map. Anytime you see this marking on the map, this means that there's a telescope nearby. This kind of just allows you to get a bird's eye view of your surroundings. It's actually pretty cool. So we go to this telescope. You can pull it up, and you get a nice bird's eye look of what's around you. So you can pan around, you can zoom in and out. That's an area for much later in the game that we're going to get to, and you can have a good look. And it really is cool just to see the size and scope of this world. And even what you can see now from this bird's eye view, it is still a very small portion of this world, believe it or not. It's quite crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to demonstrate that feature. That's pretty cool. You can look at. There's a couple of mats down here we can pick up for crafting and whatnot. So now we're going to go back on our horse and carry on our way. There's some enemies over here that I'm not really going to worry about. I don't really care about them. So right here, there's a scarab. This scarab is not for healing flask, and you see he's around enemies, so be careful of those enemies. And you want to get the kill as quickly as possible because they can disappear if they get far enough away. So this particular one gave us an Ash of War called Determination. Determination will give you a buff on that weapon, and so it'll hit harder. You're going to want to be careful also of these enemies around here. I kind of rushed in and got that scarab because, as I said before, it'll disappear if you let it get too far away. So I kind of got the scarab and then ran away. Now these guys are attacking me. So I'll get kind of the lower level dudes on foot, and then I'll get the guy on the horse. And I mean, it's not mandatory to do all this, but you know, it is good early on in the game to kind of get a feel for combat. So I'm going to take these guys out just for demonstration purposes. And if you take enough hits, you can get knocked off your horse. So just be careful of that because you don't want to get knocked off your horse. If you get knocked off your horse, then that leaves you open for a critical attack. So just be careful. And likewise, you can knock your enemies off their horse. So you see that he has a separate HP bar from his horse. So I just knocked him off his horse, and then I got a massive hit when I knocked him off his horse. So they can do the same thing to you, though. So just be careful. Be careful. This guy dropped some loot. He dropped a smithing stone and a Lordsworn's bolt. Speaking of smithing stones, there's going to be one right over here. So let's see. We got the Art of War. There's this poor gentleman over here just kind of chilling by himself. We're going to sneak up on him, hopefully, and get a backstab on him. Well, no backstab, but we still got a surprise attack, so we still got the kill. So it worked out all the same for us. Right here, there's a thing that we want. I think. Here we go. So this guy's holding a Somber smithing stone. So Somber smithing stones, there are some weapons that take the upgrade path that is given by just regular old smithing stones, and there's some that take the upgrade path given by Somber smithing stone. Somber smithing stones are generally for stronger type weapons. And so we are going to be, the main weapon that we're going to be using in this playthrough is actually one that's going to be upgraded by Somber stones. And you can see I just took away that beacon that I just put on my map just by opening up and then clicking X on where that beacon was, and the beacon went away. And you saw that skull over there that was glowing. Anytime you see a glowing skull, if you break it open, it's going to have a tier 1, level 1 rune inside of it, rune item inside of it. So what we're going to be doing next is we are going to head straight across. You'll see up above there's a guy with a horn. And as I said before, the guys with the horns are going to alert enemies to your presence. So we're going to want to get rid of him before we cross down this kind of pathway. So we're going to go up this cliff, and we're going to take care of the guy with his horn so that he doesn't surprise us. And I've done it a couple times, but you can actually do a dismount attack with your horse. So when you press L3 to dismount, you can press R2 and do a heavy, like right as you're dismounting. And that is a super helpful thing to do because it can give you Man, I totally got destroyed by that guy. It gives you a surprise attack edge on your enemy. So what we just picked up was a gold pickled fouled foot. That is a consumable item. If you consume it, I believe it increases your rune acquisition. So if you use it, you'll get more runes for killing enemies. Yes, boosts your rune acquisition. So pick up that. That'll help you if you're looking for runes. And I will say that early game, or that loop that I did at the very beginning of this episode, you can farm that loop as many times as you want. What I will say, though, is that this game really doesn't require farming. It is set up in such a way that if you explore, if you do a lot of the side stuff that we're doing now, here's a little ghost over here. I mean, not really that important, but I'll show you. Sweet, sweet sapling of glorious gold. So he's looking at a minor Erd tree. We're going to be heading over there a little bit later. And those things are of import, but we'll get to that later. As I was saying, this game does not really require farming. If you do the side stuff, if you explore, this game gives you more than enough runes to level up. In fact, I got to level 150 by the end of the game, and I lost throughout my playthrough. I lost permanently over 1.5 million runes. And just as a just as an example, this game gives you plenty of runes. You do not need to farm. If you like to farm, by all means have at it. But what I'm trying to say is that it is by no means a requirement to do well in this game. So I'm going to take out this guy on the horse, and as well as this guy with the torch. Then we're going to do something. Whoops, I accidentally got hit. That's okay. And he fell off. Finish him off on the ground. Whoops. There we go. So, heal up. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to kill these giants that are pulling the cart. Because you see there's a chest right here. You can't open the chest while the cart's moving, so we got to kill the giants. They are not as bad as they look. If you lock onto their legs, 2 fully charged attacks will knock them over. So what we're going to do is immediately do 2 fully charged attacks on his leg. So there's 1, and he doesn't like it, so he's going to stomp on you. But as long as you dodge the stomp, you're fine. There's the second one, and you see it knocks him over. Now, these larger enemies, when they're knocked over, you see this kind of glowing spot on their head. That's where you do your critical attack on them, is on that glowing spot. So now we're going to circle back around him, do the same thing over again. We're going to knock him down again. So that's 1 on his legs, and now he's mad and attacking us. But you can dodge his attacks fairly easily. There's number 2, missed it. There we go. And there we go. Knocked him over again. Gonna do that same thing where we hit the glowing spot on his head, and this might take him out, might not. I'm just gonna take him out with R1s from here. There we go. And now the other one, you don't have to kill. You can, since the cart is now stationary, you can get in there. If you want the extra runes, though, I mean, might as well go for it, right? So, charged heavy 1, he's going to stomp. Roll away from the stomp if you can. Charged heavy 2, it's going to knock him over. Get that critical attack. R1 by his shiny spot. He no likey. So now he's going to get a little bit more aggressive, so just be careful. Do a charged heavy. Oops. Sometimes even when you're locked on, you do miss, which is unfortunate, but do another charged heavy. Knock him over. Now, as I said, you do not have to kill both of them. You only have to kill one of them. I'm just demonstrating that you can kill both of them. And, of course, you're going to get some extra runes by killing both of them, so... There we go. I think that last hit triggered the bleed. As I said, this katana does do bleed damage. And so once you trigger that bleed by getting enough hits in succession, you're going to do a lot of extra damage. I say bleed damage is kind of like when you find a $20 bill underneath the couch cushion that you haven't cleaned out in forever. That extra bleed damage is just like, it's a bonus. It's just nice to have. So having a weapon equipped that does bleed damage, definitely a bonus. There are people that do their entire build around bleed damage. I'm not going to do a build bleed in this walkthrough, but some people find it worthwhile to do an entire build around bleed damage, and that is a very viable way to go through this game. So inside the chest, we got a great axe. That is actually a pretty solid weapon if you're going for a strength build. What we're going to do is there's actually an area off to the side over here that we're looking directly at. We're going to circle back to that later. We don't want to do that right now. For now, we're going to head pretty much right down to around, we'll say here. This is going to be our next site of grace that we're going to unlock. And it's just kind of on the way. It'll allow us to rest up and warp back. And as I said, over here is a point of interest. We're not gonna hit that up just quite yet, but we will go there in just a few minutes. You see over here, there's a couple shinies on the ground. We'll pick these up. Smoldering butterflies and ruin fragments. Don't need to fight these guys, especially because I don't think I have any healing flasks left. So we're gonna hit up. Down here, there should be a site of grace. And over here, there's another horseback enemy. So if you want to kind of hone your horseback combat, good spot to do it. Now, I showed you how you can highlight a beacon and remove it by hitting X that way. Also, what you can do is if you physically run into the beacon, basically indicating, hey, I've got to this place, I've got to the beacon, what it'll do is the game will automatically take it off your map just by running into it. So that's a pretty useful technique as well. And then just to kind of the south of us, there's going to be another rune item that we're going to pick up. Right here by these kind of crosses. And there's a couple enemies over here. Take them out. There's one guy with a crossbow trying to hit us as well. Do a jump attack. So you'll notice just by doing that kind of loop, we got ourselves quite a few runes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to warp back to the Church of Ella. We actually have enough to upgrade our weapon. So we're going to upgrade our weapon to +1. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the time because, as I said, there are nighttime specific bosses. I don't know if you remember that bridge we kind of went across a bit ago. If you go across that bridge at night, there's going to be a nighttime boss there. Those nighttime bosses are a bit too much for us right now, but we are going to come back later and get those nighttime bosses. So let's see. Now what we're going to do is, now that we passed the time, we're going to go straight back to the Church of Ella. I mentioned before, he had a lot of items for sale that we couldn't afford yet, but this will allow us to go back and get a lot of those items that we couldn't afford earlier. First things first, you're going to level up our weapon. So now that we can strengthen our armament, we have 4 smithing stones. You can see in the parentheses, we need 2 to upgrade. So when we upgrade, you see those blue numbers to the right of our physical damage. That's going to tell us what our new damage is going to be. So we're going to go from doing 115 base and 22 additional from our scaling to 121 base and 24 additional to our scaling. So that's going to, right off the bat, just for free, well, not for free, but right off the bat, is going to give us just extra damage. And so that is something that we're definitely going to take, and is something that is going to help us out enormously. So now we're going to go back to our shop here.
Wait, well, you're back.
And I didn't do this before.
People, selling wares as I travel. The land has been tainted by madness since the shattering of the Elden Ring. It's only tarnished like yourself, who keep things. Let's say you're a very welcome.
That's good to know. Okay, so we're going to get the telescope. We're going to get all 3 crack pots. We're going to get the other recipes. And you don't need to pick these up because I'll show you what they say. But I'll go ahead and pick them up. And that's pretty much everything that we're going to want to get from this place.
Goodbye.
So what we will do now is I will show you those little notes that we just picked up. So anytime you purchase those notes, they're going to show up here under your info tab here in your inventory. So if you press square or the equivalent button on your controller here, you can see what the note says. Note sold by a nomadic merchant, imparting knowledge in brief. A flask of wondrous physics still remains in the Third Church of America north of the Mistwood. Cross the highway bridge and follow the animal trail north. We're going to do that later. Note sold by nomadic merchant, imparting knowledge in brief. Someone lurks among the Waypoint Ruins on the roads through Limgrave. So the Waypoint Ruins, that's that spot that we kind of passed up just a minute ago. We are going to be going there in just a minute. That's actually the next place we're going to go visit. So you can buy those notes if you want to, but you don't need to because I just showed you what they said. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to use all of the rune items that we picked up. And I'm going to do some leveling up. I should hopefully be able to get 2 levels out of this. We'll see. So level up. Yeah, I should be able to get 2 levels out of this. I'm going to put both of them into strength. The weapon that I'm going for requires, I think, 18 strength and 17 dex. So I'm going to be going for that just so I can equip that weapon when we get it. So that's enough for 2 levels. You can see now that we are doing more damage. Our right-hand armament, our armament number 1 and 2, are both going to be doing a bit more damage from just leveling up our strength there. So that's going to help us out a bit. And you'll also notice that anytime you level up, it doesn't matter what stat you level up. Some of your defense is going to go up as well. So right now we just leveled up strength, and that took our defensive stats up to 80 for physical versus strike, slash, and pierce. Even if you leveled up, well, dex isn't doing it right now, but if you for example, level up your intelligence, it's going to raise your magic defense. Arcane can raise up your holy defense. HP can raise up your fire defense, and so forth. So you see, when you level up certain attributes, you also get kind of a passive boost in some of your other attributes on your defensive side as well. So always good to level up. It helps your attack. It helps your defense. Or in this case, just going through the different attributes you can level up. Vigor is for your HP. Mind, let's see. We can do explanation. So Vigor is for your HP. Mind is for your FP. Endurance is for your stamina, also affects your robustness and determines your equipment load. Strength is for wielding heavier armaments and for boosted strength scaling armaments. Dex is for wielding what they call advanced armaments and boost attack power for dex scaling. Intelligence is for glintstone sorceries or intelligence scaling sorceries and magic resistance. Faith is for sacred incantations. Arcane is for governs item discovery. Also affects holy defense, vitality, and certain sorceries and incantations. So that's a brief primer. Endurance, where it talks about your equipment load. I'm going to go over that real quick. You see the max equip load right now is currently 52.9. If I were to level up my endurance, you see how my max equip load goes up. So just a little, as I said, I'm going to put these back into strength. As I said before, your equipment load, if you look at it on your status, you see, or rather, if you pull up your equipment menu, you see on the right-hand side of the screen where it says equipment load, I'm at 30.6 units out of 52.9, which below that says medium load. So what medium load means is I move relatively fast, and I also have a decently quick roll. And so your equipment load impacts your stamina recovery. For example, if you have well, since I'm not engaged in combat, my stamina is not going to decrease. But when you're engaged in combat, your stamina is going to recover slowly. More slowly, the higher your load is. Also, if you equip too much, let's just say I'm gonna put this. I can't even use it, but I'm just gonna put it on just to demonstrate. Now I'm heavy load. Or if I were to wear heavier armor maybe, or use a heavier weapon or heavier shield, I could get to that heavy load category. So now my stamina is going to recover even slower in combat. And on top of that, look what happens to our roll. Your roll slows down enormously. I can't ever recommend being a heavy load. I just can't do heavy load because the thing about your rolling is your rolling impacts your invincibility frames. And so the faster you roll, the more invincibility frames you're going to get when you roll. And if you're rolling slow, not only are you going to be moving more slowly during your roll, but you're also not going to have as much invincibility during your roll either. So the speed of your roll matters quite greatly. So that is the long and short of equipment load and just the various attributes you can level up. What we're going to do now is we're going to head on back to this site of grace that we just unlocked. We're going to do something a little bit dangerous. But if we fail, we are right here next to our site of grace, so it's not that big of a deal. You'll see right ahead of us. It's hard to see. This will be a good opportunity to demonstrate the telescope that we just picked up. So right ahead of us, that is a scarab that's going to drop an Ash of War. So that giant crab is very powerful, very deadly. And once you start to attack that scarab, another crab is going to come out of the ground and start attacking you. So it's something that you got to take care of very quickly and then get out of dodge as quickly as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride over on my horse and I'm going to do a dismounting heavy attack to get the damage started on it. And I'm going to kill it as quickly as I can. I'm locking onto it. I'm going to dismount, do a heavy, get as much damage on it as quickly as possible, and get the heck out of here. So this gives us the Unsheathe Ash of War. I'm going to call my horse right away. It's a good thing that we just spent most of our runes because one thing I haven't demonstrated yet that I guess I could demonstrate right now is if you die, I'm going to let one of these crabs kill me. If you die, as I mentioned in the last episode, you have your runes, quote unquote, in your wallet. That's the 429 runes I have at the bottom of the screen there. So I'm going to die. And what's going to happen now, because I just died, is I'm going to lose those 429 runes. When I respawn at the site of grace that we just appeared at, I will have 0 runes. But what this game does is it gives you the opportunity. Here's the tutorial. I'll just read it. Upon dying, you will be revived at the last site of grace that you visited. You will drop any runes in your possession at the site of your death. If you die again, before reclaiming those runes, they will be lost forever. Let me read that again. If you die on your way back to your runes that you had in your quote-unquote wallet will be at the spot that you died. If you get back to them, you can reclaim them. And they will be back in your possession. But you have to get back to that spot. If you get back to that spot, you can reclaim them. However, if you die on the way back to the spot where you lost your runes, those runes are gone forever. I mentioned earlier in this episode that in my first playthrough, I lost upwards of probably 1.5 million total runes. And that's not a joke. I'm not overstating that at all. And I still finished the game feeling relatively highly leveled. And I was at level 150 when I finished the game. So, as I said, this game gives you plenty of opportunities to level up. You don't need to farm. I'm not going to discourage farming. Farming is a viable way to get through this game, but you don't need to do it if you don't want to. But just a little note, you need to, when you die, you need to make sure you get to that spot where you die to get your runes back, because if you die on the way back to your runes, they're gone. So your compass up at the top shows you. See that little icon there? That shows you the directions that your lost runes are. You can see them right in front of me. So I'm going to head back to that spot and get my runes back. And your compass will kind of guide you. So once you get there, you just want to press, the pickup button, the loot button, and you'll pick up your runes. And I've got my runes back now. So it's as if nothing ever happened. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head over to this spot over here. This is the Waypoint Ruins. We kind of, the little hint that we bought alluded to that just a bit. And I said that's going to be the next place we're going to go. So that's where we're headed next, is the Waypoint Ruins. We don't need to fight all these guys again. Been there, done that. Don't need to do it again. So here are the Waypoint Ruins. There is an underground section, little underground tunnel in this section, just like there was in the last spot that we went to, or in the last kind of ruins area that we started this episode at. You'll see that there are some poison flowers. These things will emit a poisonous gas where if you sit in it for too long, it will poison you. They can also do physical damage as well. So we got Poison Bloom and some Glowstone. Someone's chasing after us. But I guess he learned his lesson. I'm actually going to circle around to the other side of the ruins to get something else. So here you see there's a giant one of these flowers, and it emits a poisonous gas. I don't recommend fighting him. He's got a lot of HP. Just pick up this loot, the immunizing cured meat and the gold rune, and just kind of run away. It's not worth fighting him. And you see that bar. So this enemy just emitted the poison gas, and that bar that is, filling up and now decreasing, if it fills all the way up, that means that we're going to get poisoned. If that bar fills all the way up. Now, since I kind of ran away from that enemy who was poisoning me, that bar is decreasing, and now it's all the way down. And so I'm kind of away from that risk. But now if I go back into this poison gas, you see that bar going up. Again, if it goes all the way up, I will be poisoned, and I will not be poisoned until it does go all the way up. But that's kind of how status effects work in this game. So let's say if I were fighting an enemy that was doing bleed damage, there would be a bleed meter going up. And as soon as that bleed meter goes all the way up, then I would take the bleed damage. And so that's generally how status effects are going to work in this game. But we're not going to worry too much about that. We're not going to fight that guy. So we're going to go down in this tunnel, and we're going to fight a mini-boss. As soon as you walk in here, you can use your summon. I'm going to try to show you his moves. You don't need to use a summon if you don't want to. There are going to be some fights that I use a summon. There's going to be some fights that I don't use my summon spirits for. It really just depends on what I feel like at the time. So we're going to go through here. This is going to be the Pumpkinhead boss. I'm going to two-hand my weapon. I'm not going to use my shield, really. And, he kind of winds up and he throws his flail at you. He does bleed damage. So that's the bleed meter building up. If that meter goes all the way up, I'm going to take the bleed damage. So you see he has combos. He swings his flail around. If you hit his head has that big helmet on it. So hitting his head does not do as much damage as hitting his body does. You can kind of just roll away from his attacks. Again, that kind of underscores why that quicker roll is more important, because you can roll through these attacks and deal damage to the boss. I just did that. You see how that did an enormous amount of damage? That's because my bleed damage from my Uji Katana, which has a bleed effect on it, that bleed damage triggered, and that's why he took a massive loss from his HP bar there. So what I'm going to do is I want to finish this fight reliably. So I'm going to get some distance away from the boss, and I'm going to summon my wolves. Let my wolves distract him a bit while I finish things off here. So he's preoccupied with the wolves. I'm going to do a charged heavy. Let the wolves take the aggro off. Going to do a jump attack. So you see how helpful these spirit ashes can be. Do another jump attack, and now he's dead. That is Pumpkinhead. So a nice little mini boss. Again, if you die, I think there's one of those statues of Marika outside, so you can actually respawn right by this boss fight. So if you lose to this boss, if it takes you a few attempts, that's not a problem at all. You're going to respawn pretty much right outside the boss room, and you'll be able to take as many tries as you need. But in general, that's the way to approach this this mini boss. And of course, there's a site of grace in here, so we can rest. We got a bit of runes for killing the mini boss. So let's see if we can level up again. We sure can. I'm going to put some. I'm going to put a point into vigor here. And through this door, we have another important NPC that has a quest line. This is Sellen.
I wonder you should turn up here. I am Sellen, a sorcerer, quite plainly. Why are you here?
And you want to say, I want to learn sorcery.
A yen for glintstone sorceries. I dare say your proclivities are far from ideal. Oh well, perhaps nurture will defy nature, with a bit of luck. But one must choose one's masters wisely. I was exiled from the Academy of Rea Lucaria as a reviled, apostate witch. Do you still wish to learn from me?
Yes, we still want to learn.
Well, you are a piece of work. Very well. You are now my protege in glintstone sorcery. But I refuse to coddle or cast kind words. Never. Anticipate grievances, young apprentice.
Okay, so from Sellen, you can actually learn some sorceries. And if you are a caster who's focusing on an intelligence type build, there's actually some good stuff you can get from her, especially for starters. Let's see. Glintstone Arc is actually really good. It does a wide kind of, as the name would apply, a wide arc of damage. So it's very good for crowd control. It's a very good starter spell to use, especially if you're fighting a large group of enemies at the same time. Crystal Barrage is actually pretty good. It does a solid amount of damage, and I mean, even through later parts of the game, you could be doing pretty solid damage. These two spells would be good ones to focus on. Even Glintstone Pebble. These are some good spells to focus on and get. As you know, I don't have anywhere near the level of intelligence to use any of these spells, so I'm not going to worry about them. But if you are that type of build, those are some good things to focus on from the get-go. And then we get the nod and thought gesture from her. So that's all that we want to do in here for now. And as you said, as I showed before, the map kind of marks where your NPCs are. So that's where Sellen's going to be for the time being. She does have a quest line that we're going to follow. Where we're going to go next is we're going to head pretty much to the south. There's going to be a graveyard. Graveyards in this game typically have lots of runes that are available for the taking. So that's going to be kind of the next spot that we head is directly to the south. And then we're going to head back north after that. So around here, we have some wolves. These are, you know, they're wildlife, much like some of the other wildlife we've encountered. But the wolves are hostile. They're going to fight you. So you gotta kill them before they start hurting you. And you see how that blood just like completely shot out of them? That's the bleed. That's the bleed damage. I hit him enough times in a row to trigger that bleed damage. And as I said, the bleed damage it's just bonus damage that happens because you triggered the bleed. Not every weapon has bleed on it, but this katana certainly does. And there are some other weapons in the game that certainly do have bleed. So as I said, we're at a graveyard. These giant grave sites oftentimes have runes. So we're going to circle around and pick up all these runes. Got some tier 2, tier 1, and a tier 3. So not bad at all. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head north. We're still going to be a little bit off the map. You might be able to hear there is a scarab around where we're at if you want some extra flasks. I think it's a red scarab. I'm not really concerned about that right now, so I'm not going to get it. But we're going to want to head north to this spot. There's going to be a rune we want to pick up. And then where we want to go here is kind of a point of interest for us is it's right around this area, I want to say. So we're going to mount our horse. We're going to head that direction. And as I said, you know, there are some guides out there that, you know, we'd still be riding our horse. We probably wouldn't have even fought anybody yet at this point in time if we were kind of doing the go OP early route. I wanted to get straight into the action, get some good combat in at the beginning of the game, because, you know, you're strong enough to do it. And this is a perfect opportunity to learn the combat mechanics. Because I feel like if you get OP too early, one of the downsides of that is, I mean, if you're OP too early, you don't really learn the combat mechanics as well if you're one-shotting literally everything. So right here is a golden rune. So we got that. You see that over there, there's a crimson scarab. That's kind of the direction where we want to head. And these enemies, I'm not really too worried about. If you need the healing, you can kill this scarab. He'll replenish your flask usages. You see that shack over there? That's where we're headed. So go ahead and dismount. It picks up gold-tinged excrement. Sounds gross. It is a crafting material, I believe. Let me double check. Is that a crafting material? Believe it is. Yes, it is. So we're going to get this side of grace here. This is the artist's shack. And we got the homing instinct painting. And another smithing stone. And more excrement. Wonderful. Lucky us. So we got that painting. One thing we're going to do is we're going to head back to kind of our starting spot, because that is going to be where we kind of do the, well, I'll take a step back. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go. I wanted to go out here, the first step. We'll see if Vari has anything else to say to us at this point. I don't think he does.
It's time you said to come.
Yeah.
If you
Okay, so he's still telling us to go to Stormville. Where we're going to go now is we're going to head right here on this little shindig. And we got that, so I'm going to take this off. So let's take a look at this painting. If you go to the same spot of your inventory as before where we can read those notes, you can see this painting. It says, work of a wandering artist, reminiscence of a painting titled Homing Instinct. This painter is said to have captured the landscape scene during the last moments of those welcomed into death's embrace. The soul of the painter and vestiges of the dead's last moments can be discovered by visiting the location depicted even now. So this is kind of like a little puzzle. There are 6 of these paintings in the game. So basically what this is saying is it's showing you a location, and you need to find the location that this painting was painted from, and you get a special item. So the spot we just marked on our map right there is the spot where we need to go to solve this puzzle for the painting. So we're going to head on over there real quick. And not all of the other paintings are this close. There are some paintings where, you know, we get the painting and it's going to be a while before we find the spot. But this one just so happens to be pretty close by, so we're going to take care of that. Down here we have a couple of these bat enemies. They are really a pain to fight. Generally, I handle them via jump attack. Those two are not at all concerned with me, so I'm going to live and let live. If you circle around over here, there's going to be another smithing stone. We're going to pick up before we get our painting. Don't jump down there. Just don't. And if that archway looks at all familiar, that's because that is the archway that was in the painting that we just picked up. So we're going to head on over here and take away this beacon. And this is the guy who made the painting. So we walk over here. He's going to disappear and leave an item. Let's pick it up. We get the Incantation Scarab. That's actually a piece of headgear. So we check our equipment and go to our headgear. You can see this Incantation Scarab. Golden Scarab worn directly on the head. These scarabs roll clumps of incantations during their labors. Slightly reduces the FP cost of incantations, but increases the damage taken. So it slightly reduces the FP cost of incantations. But increases the damage taken. That's a trade-off if you're a caster type. You're just going to have to weigh the cost and benefit of that. So if you're a caster, it could be useful, but just know that you're going to take a little bit more damage. So I'm not going to equip that since that's not really going to benefit me in any which way. So what we're going to do now is warp on back to the Church of Ella. And we're going to close out this episode. I think we should have enough smithing stones to level up our weapon one more time to +2. We sure do. So now we're at Uchi Katana +2. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase our damage output just a bit. And we've already got all the items that we want from him. And what I'm going to do to close things out is I'm going to see if we can level up. No, we cannot. So what I'm going to do is we're just barely a few runes short from being able to get those levels. So I'm going to pop every single one of these that I have. See what kind of level. See if we can get 1, maybe 2 levels. Hopefully 2 levels. Maybe more. We'll see. All right, let's see. Take my HP up 1 more. Take my strength up 1 more. And there we go. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and close things off for this episode right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this has helped you out enormously in your journey through Elden Ring. Hope you're having a lot of fun. And thank you so much for watching. We'll pick things up right here next time. And I'll see you then. Take care.